and we've got a release coming up this week and some exciting news on what the team's been working on so far. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it. All right, so I'm gonna share screen. Let's go to desktop 1. Here we are. All right. Can everyone see everything okay? Scale it up properly. All right. So let's talk about
I think
the agenda.
Sorry, Sam,
Yep.
the video feed that's on the stream appears to be different than what you're sharing.
Oh. Let's see. Video feed. Well, let's see. I could also do the stop and start again.
There, that
yeah, it's frozen.
Yeah.
And in fact, I don't even have that window open. Come on, OBS. Don't fail me now. All right. And it'd be pretty bad if I just closed this and restarted. Well, maybe not. Application. All right, let's see how this looks.
So far, good.
And
yeah, it seems better.
Not. And it's not well, it's not captured the whole screen, but I think okay. It's only capturing the left side of my screen, but I'm just going to be mindful of that. And
yeah.
We're just gonna, moving forward, we're gonna figure out a better way to do this. Okay, let's move on.
Generally, what I do is I share the Zoom window as what the OBS captures, and then it just puts like the video and like it scales the screen share and everything.
Yeah, that's fine. That we can figure that stuff out later. Okay, so April 7th, 2021. So we are going back to our bi-weekly release cadence, and it's even though 0.18 almost came out, we have to cut to 0.19 because we do have some breaking changes coming out. Big ones being, the first one is that we're changing how buttons work, and this is work done primarily by Felipe. He's been working very hard at a fairly big PR. Where previous, Felipe, do you want to speak about what you've been working on?
Hey, Sam,
yeah, sure.
Can you take that tab and just move it into the other browser window?
Yeah. Yep, here it is.
Is it possible for me to share my screen? I would like to do like a little demo about it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, see, so when Felipe shares the screen, it doesn't, it's not going to show up on the stream because you're not sharing the Zoom window.
But yeah, I would just move the Zoom window in place.
Okay, yeah, Sam will just move it over.
Cool. So, the changes in the bottom. So, before we only had like a bottom group where we can add bottoms. Those bottoms were just structures. Now we are dealing with a new component that is called a bottom. So we can now have things like just a bottom and a place. We can add those bottoms to a group, or part of this PR is to have the ability to wrap things for the link component. So in this example, I have like a bottom, and I'm passing it to a bottom link to a link component to make this as an example. So we have the first card. The first card is just a single bottom. As you can see, the way to build that is just creating a button. Is that simple. The second example is using a couple of bottoms in a button group. this is like this. So you just create the button group, and just with the add button method, you just pass it the buttons. So for example, I have two buttons here. The first one has a confirmation modal. The second one doesn't do anything. And for the third example, I have a button wrapped by a link. So here, for example, we can see that we just create the button and we pass it to the new link method. In this example, I am passing in a request path as the URL. So if I do click here, it's gonna behave like a link, but it's a button for the view. So for the people that are watching the plugin devs, have in mind that this is a breaking change, because before, as I said, we have just an struct for the buttons. Now it's a component. So you have to have that in mind when you are updating your Octant. That's it. If anyone have any questions, just let me know.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, one question I had is on the button when you wrap the button with a link, does if there's an action assigned to that button when you click it, does it also fire the action?
I haven't tried yet, but I don't think so, because the wrap of the anchor tag is going to be outside. So I think it has a higher priority over the action. I will try it and let you know.
Yeah, whatever the behavior ends up being, I think it would be good to just document the priority of when using things inside the new when passing a component into a link component, so that it gets wrapped in an anchor tag for things that might have actions on them. Knowing whether or not those actions will fire will be useful for plugin authors.
Yep. Just gonna try it right now. You can continue and I will answer that question.
Great.
Cool. And if anyone has any additional comments on this current work, it's still technically in flight, so feel free to jump on in on this current issue, number 2255. Cool. All right. Any additional questions on the button work? Cool. And quick reminder again, it's in all caps, and we'll have it in the change logs, but these are breaking API changes, so just be aware of that if some plugins are using the old button model before upgrading. All right, cool. Next thing to talk about here is going to be some of the changes we're doing to the client ID and client state. And this is also another interesting plugin interaction with Octant, where we assume that each tab or each instance or each Electron instance, whatever you're opening Octant on, opens up. You'd have a client ID assigned to each connection that Octant creates, and each of them also has a client state. And I believe this PR comes from, I believe, did we merge that yet? No, we did not. 2244. So this is something that's been worked on by Vikram, and namely the changes being made here are that we're gonna have a way to, well, so two things are happening. One is we used to have this notion of a client ID that comes out of a request context, and this was created specifically for the alert. That's the only thing we're using it for. And now we're creating this idea of a client state, which would now contain this client ID. So instead of doing request .context.client ID, you'd have this client state object, which you can fetch, very similar to how you can get the dashboard client right now in Octant. And this should be, and this client state has additional things like ID filters and namespace, which is cool, because I think the original problem that this PR tries to solve is to get the initial state of the to get the initial state of Octant. So if you have a plugin and you start up a plugin and it wants to know what the current namespace is, or it wants to know what the current label filters are, it can now do that. Let's see. And Vikram, did I miss anything on this?
No, you covered most of it. The only thing I would add is that it also captures more actions than just setting a namespace. So if people set filters or change context, then they would also have option to catch those like actions by action handlers. Because Octant will throw these events as well.
Yeah, totally, right. Because this essentially anything that comes, so we can kind of see here, like pretty much anything that's part of the current Octant state that we eventually feed through in this way, we can pass it through as well. So this is it's fairly extendable in a sense, where we can everything about the current, even I think to some degree even about the WebSocket connections, right? We can pretty much bubble up here. Cool. Any questions about the new changes in client ID and client state? Cool. All right then. Okay, so the next thing that's coming up is the signpost. So this one has been requested. I believe this one is more driven by VMware than the general community. But nonetheless, it's still kind of a nice thing to have. We use the Clarity signpost in various places. So I think I might have merged this already. Yeah. Signpost. Oh, wow. This is an old one. All right. Signpost.
2221.
Yeah, here we are. Yeah, so the signpost itself, right, is this box here, and it's something that typically the pattern is you click something and you've got this panel that pops up and it's got additional information about whatever thing that was just clicked. And I think pretty much here we can have examples about, well, do we have? Yeah, like this should be in the storybook now, actually that might even be a better way to show what the signpost is. And going here, and hopefully it's built ready. It should be. There we go. We got a signpost. Cool.
Sam, sorry to interrupt, but could you also share your screen? I think
oh, yeah. Reshare screen. Here we are. All right. Screen share looks good. Probably not a full screen. Yeah. Man, Wade makes it look easy. All right. Here we are. So we got some. Let's go to our docs here on this magical signpost. So here, let's do we put code samples in here? Maybe not. Or maybe it's just not. Yeah, or maybe there's something in the markdown here that's just not showing the docs, but that's fine. We can always fix this later. Well, the general idea here is that you'd have some signpost component, and inside this signpost component, it has this idea of a trigger, which is any arbitrary component that can be clicked, and it'll essentially be a decorator around that component, right? So in this case, we have this icon, which seems to be a very reasonable pattern, and if you click this icon, it shows this test markup message, and at the moment, this message is strings only, right? I think that was the last thing on the review here is that, yeah. So currently right now, if you go into the API, I think, and if you create a new signpost, it will accept only a string as the message, and as it moves on, we might want to change what that message is, but it could be something else. It could be even another flex layout. So we can definitely add more functionality to this, and pretty much any arbitrary component. So like you could do it with a card, a text component. And you can also adjust the position here, I believe. So this is bottom middle. I don't have the positions memorized right off the bat, but maybe this will update. Let's see. Maybe it doesn't want to do right. Or maybe it's being smart, like it doesn't... oh, no, this is bottom right already. Huh. Maybe bottom... top right? Or maybe I have to do one of those refresh tricks. All right, that's a flop on the position change. Core idea, or maybe like there's some weird storybook interaction here, but core idea here is still simple, right? I think generally you'd have the problem this is solving specifically is when we were first implementing this, right, we were just imagining like an icon or a message, and they would just pop up text. So if the use case becomes more complex over time, this can certainly be expanded or even chime in before we cut a release. And I think like any additional edits we make should be fairly minor. Yeah. So that is the signpost. Luis, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think, yeah, and this is a pretty good addition. We could also add like some of the Clarity 5 stuff to icons. This also builds on top of the previous icon work, so looking pretty good. Cool. Oh, and that was, yep. And then next, I think we already covered over this, right? Buttons are components now. And I think we've said this before earlier, but the idea here is that buttons used to be something that was only added to a button group. Like, so if you wanted a single button, you still had to create a button group. This is no longer the case. You could have standalone buttons, or you could choose to use a button group. Cool. Link component changes. You can now pass a component.
It doesn't link anywhere yet. I couldn't find the code for it. But
I got baited.
Yeah. I think we also talked about that one previously. But the idea, and Felipe showed it in the demo, how that button, that final button, was also a link, or was just a link wrapped around that button. You can do that for any component. I'm trying to find the spot in the code where it's happening.
Yeah, right here. So a link component previously only took in, I believe, a text, right? Like it wanted just a links. Like links were just specifically used to generate URLs. And now,
if you click the up arrow to show the original code block, it still defaults to that behavior. So there it is. Yeah, text and ref.
Okay, cool. And okay, so this is done kind of. So this is not breaking, right? Like this is, or at least like this portion of the code is not breaking. We can still use links the old way. People don't have to change anything about the way they use their links right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's optional to use a component, but if you use only the text, it's going to work fine.
Yeah.
And this is another question about priority. If you use both the text and the component, does the component take priority?
Yeah, the component has a higher priority. And to answer your question before, yeah, if you use something like a button with a model and you pass it to a link, it's going to have like a higher priority, the URL. So it's, if you have a button with actions and you wanted to pass it to a link component, it's going to work only for the link. It's not going to do the actions of the button.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that behavior is fine as long as it's explicit and we call it out. I wouldn't expect I wouldn't expect, like, if you're doing that, then if like someone has a bunch of actions assigned to a button and then wraps them in an anchor tag, like I wouldn't expect that to do anything useful other than just follow the anchor tag. So yeah, that works.
I really like this pattern when we added a field and
keep the existing behavior. I think that's something we should try to do whenever possible in future, instead of introducing breaking changes, just to add stuff and keep the original functionality, if possible, still available, so we don't break all the plugins.
I agree with you. After we hit 1.0, I don't want to take that stance before then though, because
Right.
like in the case of like client ID, client state, I think breaking that was important. I think leaving the duplicate entry in there and having two places to access the same information, and then like authors would continue to depend on that behavior, and then so like we want to break stuff now. We want to break stuff sooner rather than later. Is I guess my point. After 1.0, obviously we would any breaking changes would come with a proper deprecation period of a release or two, and then we would remove that only in a major version bump. So we would follow like some version rules. But I don't necessarily want to do like be super strict about that right now.
Right. I mean, it's just whenever possible, it's good not to break, even now, because there's a bunch of plugins there, right? If it, absolutely agree that if there's something that kind of complicates the logic and makes dual interfaces, that should be avoided. But this is a good example where we can do both, I think.
Yeah, and I think there's also an example where we could maybe even long-term simplify the link component, right? Like now that it just takes a component, well, that component can be a text component. So then what is the purpose of having a text value on there, right? So like it gives us the path to deprecation if we want one.
Right.
Cool. All right. Any other questions about making anything as a link, essentially? Okay, cool. Then we'll let that be. I'm pretty sure like we're gonna eventually see people go like, I'm trying to link my data grid. Why doesn't it do what I want? But like kind of like this is kind of like it wraps whatever you want with an anchor tag, right? So it's like nuance, kind of use good judgment with it. Cool. All right, let's move on to the next one. Octant link ref generating. I think that's something I worked on. This one's not particularly exciting. So this one is essentially if for our JavaScript plugins right now, they had a helper method that creates a link component based off of a given object. And so here we just want to hit parity with it, right? So like if I have an object key and I want to make it a link, currently right now you kind of have to grab the name, and you have to grab the name namespace, and you kind of have to like construct the URL with the new link method, which it's okay, it's not awful, and like we want to keep parity between the two TypeScript and Go APIs. So this is something that's just little bit cleaner way to do that, essentially. And I think the caveat here is that like the default behavior is that if you create a link, where is it? Yeah, it'll currently just return a link component back with the name of the object, right? So like it'll just appear as the link text will be the name of the object, but obviously you can do whatever you want with the link later, and I think that's a reasonable default. But so
I think what's nice about that is we kind of like that's a nice little helping feature for people who just want to quickly generate links to existing modules within Octant, right? So whether it's Octant's main set of modules that it has for pods or whatever, or some other thing you want to generate links for, you don't have to like know the details of like, oh, how does what's the path for deployment in Octant? You can just kind of say like, here it is, give me the link, which I think is what most people want to do anyway, right? They don't want to have to think about where this stuff actually lives. They just want to say, I have a key, generate a link to the details of that key for me. but this made me think of something interesting, is that part of what used to make this really difficult for plugin authors was that they didn't have the current state of the world to generate these links sometimes. And so when you combine this change, exposing what we already have on the JavaScript side, with Vikram's change of being able to fetch the current client state off of every request, users can effectively, like really effectively, generate links for like everything now, which is kind of nice.
Cool. And yeah.
So we're not nice.
Yeah.
I don't know. I made everyone really quiet. It seems nice to me.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like this, you know, it's cool. It's not a game-changing thing. It's like cool. Code is easier now. I think, you know, I think is it Daniel who wanted this one? I think.
There's actually a few people. So I know that James wanted this. Daniel opened the original issue, but James wanted this because like they do manual link generation for all this stuff in the JX plugin. And there's like manual link generation for all the stuff in the Starboard plugin, and Antria I think also does like a bunch of manual link generation. So I think multiple plugins will get advantage from this right away, and it's used pretty extensively in the Knative plugin to generate links to resources. So. Because it's been in the JavaScript side for a while.
Yeah, and I think this is way more important than you're trying to paint it, Sam, because links are really, I mean, everything that could be a link should be a link, in my opinion, because, you know, that just improves the navigation so much, ease of access to different things. So I think that's great.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll make sure to ping plugin authors, or we'll make sure people are using this, or they're aware that they can do this after this round. Because I don't know how many plugin authors follow closely.
Yeah,
okay.
And I mentioned I commented on the PR about potentially like putting an example into the example plugin repo, and then also adding an entry to the Go plugin storybook. Just to call out like, hey, here's how you can generate a link.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Last one, resource viewer bug. So this one is more specifically, I think Milan worked on this, right? It's the here, I'll let you speak on it.
It's actually the other one.
Oh, the other.
Actually, I wanted to show the other. Right? Yeah. So I wanted to show you the one that made me scratch my head this morning, and I think I figured it out. So if I can share my screen, I can show you that.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So the one you showed is related to different thing. Just share here. So the one that the previous one was related to the dynamic components. So basically, when we create the components, so this one should show the status, but most of the other ones are text. So when we were switching those components, we had some issues, and that one has just been merged. But you can see here that there is a big issue here, and I think Sam, you posted this on the Slack channel at some point. You see there are 3 parts here, but we never see more than one. And not only that, but the screen is updated all the time. And I was trying to figure out what's going on, and it's actually passing down a single part from the backend side. And not only that, but that pod is different every time. That's why we have the updates, because we detect there's a change in the stream and update the screen every time, every second. And I spent some time looking into that, and I found out that there is a problem in this part of code here. Let me make this a little bigger so you all can see it. Yeah, so this is a detailed describer. Unfortunately, it's used only in this view, not in the pod view or other views. So just the application here. So what we are doing here is basically just populating the objects, copying the pods in objects and passing those to the resource viewer, trying to create the resource viewer definitions. But problem here is that we are actually using array, not array, a slice of pointers, and this pointer, this pod variable is declared inside the for loop, so it's always the same. So what ends up happening is we're gonna add 3 identical values to the list for those 3 pods, and the value inside will be the last one. So what happens is, and this is also done, I think, before we do sorting, so that the last one is different every time. So as we go on, we just keep, every time we run it, the other, since we have a logic later on to eliminate identical objects, all those duplicates are eliminated, and we end up with a single pod. And the fix is actually really simple. Okay, so let's do that quickly. If I restart this. So instead of using this, this is not the optimal fix. That this for loop can be like a traditional for loop. But instead of accessing this variable, we're gonna access the original array. And so now all the pods, and you can see up here, I was dumping this, you can see that there are 3 elements in this array, and they're all identical. Although the names are different, so that means that the pod objects are correct. So once this compiles and updates, yeah, you can see here the values are correct, and we have a 3 pods here. So. Yeah, so it's a like it took me a while to figure it out, but it's a classical Go language.
Yeah, it's a pretty common.
Pointers.
Yeah, because it just reuses that temporary value, and so all you're getting is the same pointer over and over.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can change that to traditional for loop, or you can make a copy of the object. Either one. I think.
Right.
I think in this case, a traditional for loop is probably the best choice, since we do want the pointers to the items, like as you call out there. So yeah, nice find.
Yeah, it took me a while to trace it down, but so that will eliminate some of the issues we have with the updates resource view, but I don't think it will do all. Right? This is probably...
No, but I mean that's a big deal where, because I remember using the applications view and it just constantly is resnapping. Like you move stuff around and then it just constantly redraws it. And you're like, why are you doing this to me?
Like a dancing boxes.
Yeah. So this is great. Yeah, if you want to put up a PR for this, we can get that into 0.19.
Sounds good. That's all I got. Just I think it's a good example just to be aware how slices are pretty cool and powerful, but need to be extra careful.
All right. Well, we will jump. I think that's it, really. I think we're back to open Q&A, unless there are any more questions about resource fair related things. Going once. Twice. All right. Well, I guess that's pretty. I guess that's pretty much it. Does anyone else have anything? Not even Q&A. Any general questions, comments? If not, we can call it, and I'll see y'all next week. Nope. Cool. All right. Later, everyone.
See you, bye.